Revolutionary greetings, comrades. I am Ngabuto Nicholas Mapena. It's a red Sunday. In our political study, we are looking on the African continent. On this day, 25 May 1963, the Organization of African Union was established. When it was established, few African countries had gained what we call independence or majority rule. The main aim of the Organization of African Unity, now African Union, was to assist those that were not yet free to fight for their freedom across the African continent, to give solidarity, to open up their countries for military bases for those that were engaged in guerrilla warfare against the colonialists that were still active in the African continent. In this video, as we commemorate Africa Day, this great day which was established in 1963, we are not necessarily reviewing what progress have been made by the Organization of the African Unity or African Union as it is today. But we want to put it on record that we are still under neo-colonialism. Yes, we might have gained majority rule, but the rest of Africa is still under neo-colonialism. We must also accept and submit that the revolutionary forces that fought alongside liberation movements, we are now weak. When we gained independence or majority rule, we thought the struggle was complete. Kwame Nkrumah characterized it correctly that post-liberation, we became a neo-colon in Africa. Now, one would have expected that with the progressive forces, that is the Communist Party, the Communist and Workers' parties, and together with the progressive forces, would lead in the fight against neo-colonialism, in the fight against imperialism. But we must admit that communist and workers' parties across the African continent, we are weak. We see the emergence of neoliberal parties that are in charge of African countries across the continent. This puts a lot of pressure on us that we are no longer the leading light in the struggle against neo-colonialism, in the struggle against imperialism. But there's hope, and the hope is coming from one state entity, not necessarily a state entity, one of the state apparatus that is beginning to lead in rejecting imperialism in Africa, in dismantling neo-colonialism. As Marxists, we have defined the military as an institution that is a tool of the ruling class used to maintain power and enforce this existing social order. We have seen how the military across the continent, particularly of course in Zimbabwe, country where I'm born, where the military has been used to oppress the working class and the peasantry. So the military, as Marxists, we have seen it as not a neutral entity, but as instruments of oppression and exploitation. It is designed to protect the interests of the dominant class and suppress dissent. So the military, as a key state apparatus, maintains or is used as a tool to maintain the interests of the ruling class. This is why the military would disrupt demonstrations. We can give a number of examples which we have seen happening in Zimbabwe, which we have seen happening across the continent. The military is seen as a direct extension of the state. which in turn is considered an instrument of the ruling class. So that's, in simple terms, this is how, as Marxists, were characterized or defined the military, right? But we are beginning to see some in the military who are progressive, who are showing the way that indeed we must dismantle neocolonialism, we must dismantle imperialism. We see President Traore in Burkina Faso. We see the comrades in Mali, in Niger. We are still studying what is happening in Ivory Coast. So we see this revolutionary path that is being taken, if I were used to use the term, which is being led by some in the military, to an extent that we are pushing, particularly in the Sahel region, we are pushing back French imperialism. But instead of all of us in the African continent joining forces to support the Sahel region, those that are in power, the political leadership in Africa, they might support this in darkness, but they cannot be open about it because they are still under the control of the colonial powers. So, yes, Africa has achieved, particularly after 1991, when we saw what was termed the winds of change across the continent, because many African states, when they gained political independence or majority rule, they ushered in one-party political system. But post-1990, post-1991, when the gains in the Soviet Union were reversed, we then saw Africa, in the most of cases, adopting what we call multi-party democracy, which is the case in a number of African countries. But what did this multi-party democracy do? It meant that the colonialists, those that were defeated or those that negotiated for a neo-colonial state, funded the new political movements, opposition parties, so that they maintain a stronghold on what they call their former colonies. So a number of opposition parties will get funding from the West so that you will not address the historical colonial justice, the question of land, the question of the commanding heights of the economy. So the opposition is seen as puppets of the Western government. Some opposition parties that had came to power and then along the way, when they were in power, lost the script of the Western imperialism, were equally removed because a new opposition party will emerge. Some reactionary civil society organizations will be created, massively funded. There will be street protests across. And this will not be in the interest of the working class and the peasantry in Africa. So what we are beginning to see from an institution that as Marxists were viewed as an extension, which we are correct in our scientific analysis of the military, that it is one of the key state apparatus that is used as a tool to oppress the working class and peasantry. We are correct in that. But we are saying we are beginning to see some within this critical institution, this key state apparatus that is progressive, that is revolutionary in nature. At our Congress as the Zimbabwe Communist Party, we said if we are to win power on behalf, or if the working class and the peasantry were to win political power in Zimbabwe, were to be in charge of the Zimbabwean state, one of the things that we needed to do or needs to be done is to win over the military in Zimbabwe. So as we commemorate this day, as established in 1963, we must reflect on the progressive role that some in the military, like in the Sahel region or part of West Africa, are playing in reversing or in dismantling neocolonialism and imperialism, because our agenda is not so much about the Western democracy, because as the working class and the peasantry, we define democracy differently from the West, because to us, this is why the workers at a workplace, they elect their representatives, their union leaders, their shop steward. They are elected by the workers. They are not imposed. There's no shop steward who has imposed themselves to the workers and said, I'm now your shop steward. They are elected by the workers. We are saying it is the workers at the workplace that must determine the question of production. How many products, the quantity of products that should be produced. Because products must be produced based on the needs of society. That's what we advocate for. So the working class and the peasantry are democratic in that they take collective decisions. So a communist party or a workers' party, by the way, it is democratic. But our democracy is different from the Western democracy. So the struggle in Africa is the struggle against the neocolonialism, and we are anti-imperialist. It is not about restoring what others are saying. It is Western democracy, where you have multi-party, a multi-system of government. In the previous video, we spoke about this. We spoke about Swaziland, we spoke about Zimbabwe, we spoke about Mali. But what we want to underline is that the struggle is not about Western democracy. The struggle is about dismantling neocolonialism and imperialism as we commemorate this great day. So going forward, we must begin to say, how do we unite? How do we collaborate with the progressive forces in the military to dismantle imperialism and to dismantle neocolonialism? I wish you a great day. As we continue to debate in various meetings, some countries it's a holiday, some comrades are organizing events in countries where it is not a public holiday, but let us engage with the aim of dismantling imperialism and neocolonialism. Amandla Comrades, please like this video, subscribe to this YouTube channel. If you're on TikTok, please do follow us. Otherwise, goodbye.